Hello. Hang on a second. Let me get the Instagram story started. One moment. Oh, well, you know what? Hang on, guys. Technical difficulties here. Oh, I tell you. Okay, trying to do all this stuff. Look for a job posting to be coming up soon. Hey, everybody, give me a second, because trying to do all this stuff by myself is just not happening. So I need you guys to keep an eye out for a job posting that I will be making soon for an assistant. I'll be posting hey D, I'll be posting a job description soon, because I can't keep trying to do all this stuff on my own. You know, you have hey Ravi, hey Rakita and Cheeks. Hang on, guys. Let me figure out what the heck I'm trying to do here. You know what? I'm just going to leave this alone. I'll share it out later. Okay. All right. So hello. Welcome, everyone. This is, of course, Anita Charlot, your dating and relationship coach, author of The 5 Phases of Dating, the grown-ass woman's guide to dating and relationships, and also the founder of Relationship Architect Academy, the first online relationship school of its kind, dedicated to teaching women how to attract and maintain authentic relationships through healthy dating concepts. So now that I've gotten all of that out of the way, I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about, hey Daphne, I want to talk to you guys tonight about the Red Table Talks. I don't know if you saw it yesterday with Jada and her mom and her daughter, but it was a very, hey Monya, it was a very, very touching episode. It was in honor of mothers, but I wanted to talk a bit about share with you, my experience and what I took away from that conversation. And I'm so looking forward to many more of them. We saw several dynamics in play here. And this is, I thought this was very, very appropriate, even though the show was geared towards mothers. There was a lot of interaction and a lot of, I guess you could say, reality about the relationships and the demise of relationships and the intertwining of relationships and everybody that's affected, right? So as we're watching, Jada shares, hey Eddie, Jada shares, you hear her say that her and her mom had they had, some very trying times when Jada was coming up, and that Jada depended a lot on her grandmother. She felt, I remember years ago when I was reading an article, she stated that she really enjoyed her time with her grandmother, and that, her grandmother helped to raise her. And so we heard last night about the dynamics between Jada and Willow and the grandmother. And I don't know if I watched this, if this was at the end of that show, but I kept clicking through. So I saw another clip. Hey, Donchella. I saw another clip of Willow explaining to both Adrienne and Jada how she felt like she had spent time with each one of them individually, but never together. And then she wanted to know, she felt like she knew her mom as a mom, but she didn't know her as a person, right? Like as who she was before she became a mom. So there were a whole lot of things that came out in last night's episode that I found very, very interesting, and it made me start to think. So hey Carolyn, there was a moment when we saw an interaction between Jada and Cherie. At the time when Jada and Will started dating, Will was still married to Cherie, and so we saw, almost like we saw a healing at the table when Cherie could have been, they've been working at this co-parenting thing for a while, but Cherie could have had, the sister girl attitude and, the whole neck roll and everything. She could have still been bitter. But what I really appreciated about these two women is that they put their their individual issues aside and they came together and did what they needed to do for Trey. And even with Trey being a part of or being incorporated into the family, and, you saw pictures of Jada and Will's growing family and Trey, we learned last night that Trey also had, he still felt like kind of like an outsider. And so I want you guys to really think about their situation. I mean, it was a really big, when you look at the dynamics between the grandmother and the granddaughter and the mom and the Trey's mom, and how that, all of that was just like a big bowl, right? A big bowl of stuff. And a lot of that stuff was the adult stuff that the children happened to be born into. Okay, so I want you to think about this. I want you to really think about how our actions, our reactions, how our interactions affect our children, what they see. How do we think that they are dealing with this, right? Are we putting our stuff out there for our children to see, or are we being selective about what we allow them to see? And I've been on, both sides of the fence, and I've had friends that, and I have clients that are all about, being 100% honest and truthful in front of your kids, and just telling them the truth so that, you're keeping it real, that whole thing. And that whole keeping it real, that bothers me. That really, really bothers me. Because when we keep it real, just because you think something doesn't mean that, hey, D, just because you think something doesn't mean that you should say it. And when you're talking to children, hey, Kimya, when you're talking to children, I think that whenever you're sharing things with them, that you should try to at least be as neutral as possible. Okay. Because and be age appropriate when you're explaining something, right? You wouldn't explain something to an 11-year-old the same way you would explain something to an 18-year-old. So I think when our children come to us and they ask us questions, we need to answer them by being age appropriate, and also by trying to remove our judgment out of the situation. Now, I am not perfect. And I have been there, and, I've been married before, and there was a divorce, and how, I don't know very many amicable divorces, but you run the risk if you share too much with your kids, you run the risk of the child having a tainted view of the other parent. And also the child grows up with this, then they don't really know what to do, because they're in the middle. They love both of you, but they hear, daddy talking about mommy, they hear mommy talking about daddy. And so, they feel that tug of war, whether we say it or not. You need to be with me, or why are you so nice about him, or why are you always laughing when you're on the phone with him? And, I've heard it all. Okay. So we really need to be careful about the way that we talk to our children, and the way that our children, the example that our children see when it comes to us relating to other people. So I do have my list here of things to talk about. So I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me finish with the real table talks conversation. So, the ability for three generations to sit down at a table and to have open, honest dialogue about life, and about love, and about pain, and about authenticity. I thought that was very real. I thought that it was very real. I thought that it was very raw, and I thought that it was absolutely phenomenal. there were quite a few times where Jada and Adrienne were talking to each other, and Willow was just sitting back, you know, in the cut. She was listening in, and you could hear her go, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So even though Willow wasn't actually taking part in that specific conversation, hey, Phyllis, she was still listening to it. She could hear how, you know, a mother and daughter who had their challenges. We can easily see that when Jada's mother may not have been there for her when she was growing up, and she said why, because she was very young, right? She said that I was so young, I didn't know what to do. She was married and divorced. You know, I think she said by the age of 19, she got married when she was 17 and pregnant. She got divorced at 19. That's a lot. She hadn't even completed, you know, she hadn't even matured to that level yet. So I'm sure, you know, being that young and having that much responsibility was really, really challenging. She wanted to be out. She went out, you know, she did her thing. But for those two women to find a way to heal their own stuff, and then to sit there and allow their daughter to be a part of that conversation with what they shared with her last night, I thought was absolutely phenomenal. And it just got me thinking, right? What is this going to do for Willow? How is this going to affect Willow? And the way I see it is that, Willow is going to, you know, and I've done it too, I'm guilty of it too, you know, Jada and Will allow their children to just be whatever they want to be, cut their hair, wear different, you know, types of clothes. They just let them express themselves the way that they want to express themselves. Just like, you know, Beyonce and Blue Ivy's hair, everybody had a fit about that. Everybody always has something to say about how other people should raise their children. But what I want you to take away from last night's episode is the fact that Willow, because she is listening, because she is participating, she's not just sitting there hearing it. She's actually actively engaging in the conversation. And they're not dismissing her. They're not telling her, girl, stay out of grown folks' conversation. They're not rushing her when she has something to say. You know, they are listening. They are listening to her, and they are honoring her feelings and her thoughts, and they are answering her questions. And she asks, you know, she points out, you know, specific things, and as they can be specific things about the topic, coming from a 17-year-old's point of view, but is still very, very open, very honest. What is that going to do with her as she starts to become a young adult, when she starts to date? What do we think that's going? What do I think? Because you guys are not, you can feel free to put something in the chat room, but since we're not having an open conversation here, it's kind of challenging for me to say, what do you think? And then hear what you have to say. But regardless to what the world's opinions are about Willow's hair, what Willow does, what kind of shoes she wears, what her father and her mother let her do, regardless of that, it seems as though, or it seemed to me, that they are raising, at least Willow, because I haven't seen a conversation with, you know, Jaden or Troy, but Willow, as a young woman, she is going to have such a healthy sense of self-esteem. There will not be any mommy issues from what I can tell, from what I see. I'm not an expert. This is just my, hey, Hazel, this is just my, you know, my opinion, but I can tell you from where I sit in terms of being a dating and relationship coach, the fact that they are having these conversations with her at this age, the fact that she sees women getting together and understanding and acknowledging and honoring each other's feelings, not tearing each other down, not yelling and screaming. The fact that she was able to witness the communication between Cherie and Jada, and that moment of, I guess you could say, that moment of healing when Cherie shared, hey, Desiree, when Cherie shared with Jada what Trey had said when he came home, Jada apologized and acknowledged, some things and stated that she was wrong. She should have fell back, for Willow to see this and witness this and still be a part of this, and to see that these women not only say one thing, but that they were living this. This is going to help her tremendously. This is going to help her, one, to connect with other women on an honest level. It is going to help her respect and honor herself for the young woman that she is. It is going to help her when it comes time for her to start dating, because she's seen such a healthy interaction between women. She's learned about the different dynamics of relationships and what happens when you step into somebody else's relationship or marriage, and how that plays out and how the children are affected by it. Because once she saw that clip, she then realized why certain things were a certain way when they were growing up. And so now she is very, very wise in terms of connections and relationships, and being connected to other women from a genuine place, and being in touch with your feelings, and also, speaking up and apologizing when you're wrong. So these are absolutely great things for her to be experiencing with the women in her family. Okay. Oftentimes, and I'm going to move on to my second point, is oftentimes, how did things happen in your childhood? I know in my childhood, I wasn't allowed to sit at the table and talk with the grown women. It was always get out of grown folks' business, go sit down, go play somewhere. We weren't allowed to sit at the table. We weren't allowed to sit around. I don't know about you guys, but feel free to post it in the content box or comment box. I always want to say chat box, in the comment box. But we weren't allowed to do that. We were to be seen and not heard. Hey, Chanel, we were to be seen and not heard. We were not to sit around grown women while grown women were having grown folks conversation. And, when it came to talking about, relationships or dating, or, what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to honor yourself, I heard comments, and these were very good comments. So I'm not upset about the comments, but these are the comments that I heard. Keep your panties up, keep your dresses down. Actually, she messed that one up. One day she said, keep your dresses up and your panties down. And Edwina and I just had a big kick out of that one. Do not get pregnant. Don't be having sex early. Don't be having sex yet. You're not ready to have sex. Watch out for these nasty boys, because all they want to do is get in your pants. Stuff like that. And I didn't hear that. And all that was good advice, definitely good advice. But that left, that whole interaction, that whole conversation about, I think during those times, during those like high school years, maybe even young adult years, that's the time to really start to instill self-love and self-respect, not just in our girls, but also in our boys, right? If our girls learned that they were taught and they were nurtured to the point where they understood that they were sacred beings, they understood about mixing energies when you have sex with someone. Your hey moon pie. When you have sex with someone, that residual energy, if we were having different conversations, we would now, if I had a daughter now, if I had a daughter and she was coming up now, if I had a granddaughter, I would share these types of conversations with her. I would tell her that just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean that you have to do it, right? That there is a certain level of respect that you should definitely have for yourself, and there is definitely a certain level of respect that you should expect other people to have for you, that women can be friends, that all women are not backstabbing, and all women are not going to tear you down. I would teach her how to, because of the interaction that she, would have had with me, then and watching me and my friends, and she would know what it's like to have a good group of women. One of my best friends, we've been friends since, oh my goodness, I'm 52. She'll be 53 in 2 days. Haha. She's an old lady. But we've been friends. So we're 53 this year. We've been friends over 40 years. We've been friends over 40 years. And it's like, we have stayed, even though we've lived in different places and we've had different lives, we've always managed, and we live in different states. We always manage to find our way back to each other, pick up the phone, do a Facebook Live. But those types of relationships, if our daughters, our granddaughters, our nieces, the young women that we mentor, if they see a healthy role model, if they see healthy interaction between women, then they'll know what that looks like, and they'll know that it's possible. Now, are they always going to pick the right friends? No, but they will be in a better position to heal and move on from that than those that young girls that never had that. For the young girls who have mothers that are still young themselves, and they or the mothers who have to there you go. Watch out now, 56. Oh, never aging gracefully. Go ahead, girl. So, the young women, the young girls that have mothers that are also young, mothers that feel like they didn't have an opportunity. Hello, I can't pronounce your name, but I know your last name, Charlot. Those young girls, they are who have mothers that have not yet matured fully to be ready to be a mother. They're going to have their own challenges, right? You have, some of those mothers are still trying to be a young adult. And the stresses of motherhood are just a lot, and they don't really know how to deal with them. Just like Jada's mother says, she was so young, she didn't know what to do with the child. She wasn't ready, to be a mom. She wasn't in the mom mindset. And so as a result of that, those young women are going to grow up, some of them in the club at the same time with the mom, some of them having that resentment because their mother wasn't there, or their mother was out doing things while they needed the mother at home. And so when we don't have that connection with the young women in our lives, I'm going to talk about the boys in a minute too, but when we don't have that connection with the young women in our lives, what we do is we end up raising adult children, right? Just because, they're a woman and I have clients, I promise you, just because a woman is in her 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, doesn't mean that woman is and has developed emotionally. It doesn't mean that she is emotionally evolved, not involved, but evolved, because there's a lot of pain that goes on. There's a lot of pushing, your thoughts and your feelings down, pushing them down, because you have to then, you have to, as I say, man up, but you have to be that woman. You have to put on that face. I remember a time in my life where my children were, and I don't think I ever told them this, but there was, I just felt like, why? I was a single mom, and I felt like, okay, I'm doing this all by myself. Why do I have to do this by myself? How come, things didn't work out? How come their dads won't do this? How come I don't have time, to go? I can barely have time to take a bath and all that stuff. And so, you have those thoughts in your head. And as a mom, you feel guilty because you want to have some time, but then you have to be there for your children. And sometimes, depending on who you are and how open you are to really facing those feelings, you could definitely end up feeling, as a parent, as a mom, resentment. You could feel resentment. If you don't know how to place that, you don't know how to heal that or move through that, that is something that could definitely happen, and it could affect the interaction between you and your child. So also, if the mother has a very trying relationship with the father of the child, then you have that additional dynamic. So if they're always bickering, the child hears that. If the dad is talking about the mom, when the child goes over there and then the mom is talking about the dad, the child is in the middle, and they pay for it dearly. They don't know. They want to love both. They love both parents, but they don't want to pick sides. But sometimes one parent will get upset if the child doesn't side with them, or the other parent will get upset if the child doesn't side with them. So that is a very unhealthy situation for your boys and girls to grow up in. And what happens, what happens with those kids is they don't learn how, if they don't witness a healthy interaction, if they don't have that in their life, then, hello, Tanya. Hey, Raina. If they don't have that in their life, then you have these, adult-aged individuals who are trying to date and mate and marry, but they still have so many unresolved issues from their past. They have so many points of pain. And the minute that somebody pushes that button, then they're going, like they're flying off the handle. Sometimes, maybe it's warranted, and other times it's because they've touched a pain body that has been lying dormant, since childhood. And again, unless that person has been strong enough, or at least wants to figure out why they keep having the same experiences, why these things keep popping up, why this made them so angry, where is that coming from? Where is that anger coming from? If a person is not one to seek out understanding and introspection and reflection and help with, finding out what's going on. Why do their relationships keep going the same way? Why do they keep attracting the same type of, men or women? Then you're going to, I promise you, there are a lot of people walking around, regardless of their age, that still have unresolved pain bodies that they need to grow through. Okay, so I promised you I was going to talk about the boys for a moment. So let's say I've been talking about having conversations with the young girls. So we should be, and I think that the fathers as well as the mothers should be having conversations with the daughters. And I think the same for for the sons. The mothers and the fathers should be having separate conversations, maybe even depending on where they are in their emotional evolution. If they're together, if they're married, fine. If they're in a relationship with each other, fine. If they're in a relationship with other people or married to other people, that's fine too. If they're at a point where they can come together to share, or at least make sure that they're sharing from a place of authenticity and not a place of trying to point a finger at the other person. But these conversations need to be had. So the conversations, that need to be had with our boys are that, most often than not, the boys are rewarded for going out there and sowing their royal oats, and the girls are talked about, and the girls are, called fast little whores. They call them all types of names, but there's a double standard there, right? So that the boys that you're encouraging to go out there and sleep with the women or the girls, those girls are somebody's daughter. That girl, just like you don't want, for the fathers, just like you don't want any guy or boy coming up to your daughter and, wanting to do things with your daughter, but it's okay for your son to do that to somebody else's daughter. I think we need to think about that. I think the conversations we need to have with young men, while I am all about allowing people to, young adults to progress, and to mature in their own way. I do think that having a conversation with young men about being safe, if they're going to, with both the men, the young men. I'm so used to talking about adults. It's kind of hard to switch to the young adult conversation, but they need to, boys, young men need to be taught that just because she looks good doesn't mean, just because it looks good to you doesn't mean that it's good for you. Okay. And that you don't have to sleep with every young girl out there. And hey, Tanya, if you take the time to share with your boys, talk about the joys of being in a dating situation or relationship with a young lady, and taking your time and really getting to know, who she is, get to understand her. If you teach young men about being respectful of young women, teach young men about the responsibilities that come with being in a relationship, especially if they have graduated to the point of having sex, about how much it is just as much his responsibility to practice safe sex as it is her responsibility. If we give them these conversations, you have these conversations with them from a male perspective, and then also from the female perspective. Female perspective, we talk about, we can share about women's emotions. We can share with them about, okay, when she does this, this is what she really means. When she says this, this is what she really means, right? We can teach them how to read the energy of women, and just the men as well as women. If you are evolved enough, you can share with your sons how to read the energy of women, and vice versa. Okay. So I think that having these conversations, having open red table talks is a great thing to do. And I would actually start it. I would start, if I could, if I were to be given the opportunity to reach back and to mentor or teach young adults, I would want to start in middle school. Because I think in middle school is when, the little boys start to have, take a little extra time getting up in the morning, not wanting anybody to see them before they go to the bathroom first thing in the morning. Men, I think you know what I'm talking about. And middle school for some girls, especially now, I don't know if it's because of the hormones in the food or what, but young girls are getting their cycles a lot earlier. And so they're having to deal with all of these hormones and everything. So I think middle school would be the best time to start to have these conversations with your children. And then you just talk to them about how valuable they are, how they should honor themselves. I'm a big proponent of, having young girls write like affirmations and believe in themselves, and have like young sister circles. And these are the things that I think about, right? I thought about, creating a program for middle school, high school age girls, because by the time they get to college, if they haven't been given that information, if they haven't been talked to, if they haven't been taught just how valuable they are, just how they should honor themselves, how to interact with other people, how to date, what a healthy dating situation looks like, right? What is a healthy dating situation? What is the type of personality that you want to attract into your life? How do you, if she doesn't understand, by the time she gets to college, if she doesn't understand, the spiritual aspects of sleeping with men or women these days, sleeping with more than one person, how that leaves, the exchange of energy and what that does, and how that leaves you with these residual energies that you really have to work hard you really have to work hard to try to grow through. And if you don't know anything about that, you can go on, you could start in college or even high school, having sex with multiple partners. It just continues to grow and grow. The number just grows. And while, you may be out there having a good time, you could find yourself in a position where you've been so active with all these individuals, you could be in a place where something is now damaged and you can't have children because of something that you did or contracted while you were being very active. You could like Samsonite. I know we used to say this, like Samsonite. You could pick up something that you cannot return that will last forever. You could you could have all of these like feelings and mood swings and things that you're not aware of where they're coming from. You guys know that I'm a metaphysician. I have my degree in metaphysics. So when I look at relationships, I'm not just looking at relationships from the point of view of just the two people, two personalities, and two bodies. I'm also looking at the spiritual connection and how being with multiple partners leaves a residue. If you're not aware of this and you don't know how to cleanse yourself, your energy, your body, your mind, your heart, you don't know how to do that. And so the more, I think the more conversations that we have at an earlier point, then once the young lady gets to college or of college age, because everybody doesn't go to college, then she will be in a better position to make the choices that are right for her, or to know how to pivot and heal when she finds herself in a position that she really didn't want to be in. Okay. I think if we start earlier, we can then keep we can stop or at least reduce the number of abusive relationships that our girls get into, or abusive marriages. They will have started young enough where they can actually learn how to see the signs and they know what to look for. If we, whether they're fathers in their lives or not, if the men, will step up and maybe their cousins or their uncles or, their in-laws or something like that, someone that a male that they trust can talk to them about, how men really think or how young boys really think, and to school her on, what to look out for and what is game and what's not game, right? We need to have these conversations so that, hey, Mercedes, we need to have these conversations. Hey, Quiet Storm, so that they know, so that they're aware, so that they don't go into the young adulthood with all of this residual energy and pent up emotions and the things that they're doing to try to get away. You'd be surprised how many young women will run to the first man that, or young man that gives them some attention because of what their home situation is like. And they'll flock to him and they'll do whatever he says because they want to escape what's happening at home, or no one's paying them any attention at home, or they're getting a lot of negative attention at home. And so they run to that first guy. You need to know that whether you are, hey, Pawanda, whether you are, if you watching this are still harboring or holding on to pain bodies from your past, there are times when you think you may be hiding it, but your pain is showing. And I think I did a Facebook Live on this, girl, your insecurity is showing. That's what the video was. But it shows, and you carry that with you, and you carry that energy with you. And a lot of times people, some men are able to recognize that energy, and all men are not dogs. But there are some men, if they are not looking to have something serious, and that they can pick out the women who they can get in there with, do what they want to do with, and then walk out. Okay. So my goal is to get started with the young women early enough that, and they're going to be, I'm not saying that if I get started with them early enough that they're going to go through their high school years, middle school, high school years, and on, as a woman, an adult woman, and never have any issues. No, that's not what I'm saying. But if you're 45 and you're just now hearing and learning about healthy relationships, you're just now recognizing the signs from that abusive marriage that you had, or you were in an abusive relationship, you're just now figuring out what it is you want. Excuse me. Excuse me. I didn't even ask you guys. Did you bring your cocktails? Did you bring your cocktails with you? It is cocktails and conversation. But if you're 45 and you're just now finding this out, that means that you've lived a lifetime of unnecessary pain, of unnecessary confusion, right? As a young man, if you, excuse me, if you understood if you understood the energy of women, if you were taught that, if you were taught to be respectful of women, if you were taught, to look at, okay, how would you want someone to treat your daughter? Then the girl that you're dating, that's someone else's daughter. And the things that the way that you treat her is a reflection, is a reflection of the way that someone else could possibly treat your daughter. Is that something that you would want? And, you ask the question, well, how would you feel about it if you found out that, your daughter's boyfriend was doing what you're doing? How would you feel as a father? And when you put things in perspective that way, you may not reach all of them, but you could very well reach some of them, right? And so I just think we need to have these conversations earlier in life. I think if we have them earlier, then we can start to turn the tides, right? We can start to have less women living in domestic violence shelters, right? And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but all of us, am a domestic abuse survivor. Okay. So it's one of the reasons why I started dating and relationship coaching. But if we talk to young girls and we provide them with these tools early enough, then they can recognize the signs. And, there are so many different things, so many different reasons why men get in relationships and don't really give their heart. They'll give of their wallet, but they won't give of their heart. And women are flocking to these wallets, but not really appreciating the man, right? So you have instances where a guy will be dating, a cute, fine girl, and she's excited because he's taking her shopping and he's, buying her everything that she wants, and he's taking her to all these restaurants and on all these trips. But then he ends up breaking up with her to get with this girl who is not as well put together as this one, who is not as cute as this one, and she can't understand what he sees in her or where she went wrong. Because he never opened up and he never shared. So teaching our women how to understand the energy of men will allow them to recognize if what they're looking for is a long-term, authentic relationship with someone, with a man that is going to be able to connect with her emotionally and spiritually, then she'll know how to pick that out. She'll know how to identify what I like to call big dick willies, right? Big dick willies are the guys or girls who lead with their wallets, who lead with extravagant gifts, who lead with, those sorts of things, those types of things, because they don't really want to let you inside for whatever reason. Either they've been hurt in the past. Thank you, Daphne. Either they've been hurt in the past, or they come from a background where they were never taught how to treat women. Maybe they're thanks, Dee. Maybe they're they look at the men in their family, and all the men in their family were womanizers, and so this is what they know how to do because they were not taught something different. Well, I'm not going to blame that on the man. That's just his experience. But if we teach our young girls early enough, we start them early and we teach them how to identify and understand the energy of men, then they'll be able to recognize it, and they can then make an informed decision as to whether or not they want to take a chance on this dude or not. Okay. And even for the young men, if we start these programs early enough, maybe in their home environment or, in their personal lives, they're surrounded by men who are womanizers, but you never know that one conversation during that one workshop to a young man may stick with him. And even though his friends and family members are doing what they're doing to the women around them, he may just be that one man that is going to think differently once he comes of age. He will see things differently. But I think we got to catch these young adults. We got to catch these people young adults, people, children, when they're younger, be middle age. That's when it all begins. And, sometimes based on your home experience, you could see, oh my goodness, there was one time, I can't remember where I was, but there was this little girl, she's about 7. And she was so overtly sexual. Okay, what I mean is that, the way she walked around there, her mannerisms, and, the way she danced at 7, the way she was trying to get the attention of, the teenage boys. Now she's 7 and she's like hitting on like these 16 and 17-year-olds. Well, of course, little girls always have crushes on the older boys, but you never know if that young man is not of sound mind and body. That could be a situation. Well, what concerned me was that the 7-year-old nobody stopped her. Nobody told her to sit her ass down, right? Nobody told her to get out of their boy's face. Nobody told her any of that. And they allowed her to be that, sensual, sexual little 7-year-old, for a 7-year-old, sensual, sexual relative, right? But she was 7, and the way that she was behaving was not the way that she should behave. So what would you predict that her teenage years are going to be? If she is this way at 7, then she is definitely going to be, I would assume, and I have seen it happen, she will be very, very promiscuous. She will want, if she's getting this energy and this response at 7, she's only going to continue to do more things to get a bigger high, to get a bigger rush. And so I want to be able to talk openly. So between starting in middle school, 6th to 8th grade, I can speak openly to them to a certain point. And then high school, right? Because if you get them young, then you reduce the number of adult children walking around with pain bodies, with residual energy, with resentment, with pain, with experiences that they put in a box, right? So if you've ever wondered why, let's give you a little extra tidbit here. If you ever wonder why during certain arguments or certain conversations, you just fly off the handle, certain situations, oh my God, it's the end of the world. And then you go and you ask yourself, why the hell did I behave that way? Why did I go off like that? It wasn't even that serious, right? That's because there is something that you have pushed down. There's a pain body, there's an experience, there's something that you allowed to continue to take residence within your spirit. So a lot of times we will say, oh, I forgive you. Oh, no, it's cool, when it's really not cool, So at some point, because you didn't honor your truth in that moment, it's going to come back up. And it is going to come back up at the most inopportune time. And when you get to your 40s and your 50s, this is a whole nother conversation. So when we talk about women's bodies, women's wisdom, as you start to move into, the crone phase, as you start to move into menopause. Wait, hang on, hold on. Let me back up. So another thing that I think is really important is rites of passage. I don't know about. I just know that other cultures do it. I don't know how they do it. I don't know the reasons for them doing it. But I think that somewhere between 6th grade and 8th grade, before they go off to high school, we should have a rites of passage. And during that rites of passage for the girls, we should explain to them the spiritual aspect of their monthly cycles. Okay. I know they don't know this because I did not know this. I didn't learn this until I started doing my metaphysical studies. But the monthly cycle, okay, back in the day, they're used to the women. The cycle was considered in one part of the world, it was considered like nasty, and then the other part of the world, it was considered sacred. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the sacred side. I'm not going to even talk to the hand over there. Okay, on the sacred side, they would have, when the women in the village, whenever they would have their cycles, they would go into this hut and they would stay in the hut for the duration of their cycles. Okay. And so in this hut, this was the place where, women would support women, where there were older women there to explain to the younger women what was happening to their bodies. And during that time, the monthly cycle is the time that you have, and the time that your body and your spirit says, as a woman, says, okay, now is the time for you to heal any sort of unresolved emotional issues that have come up for you during the month. Okay, this is your time to shed that. Just like the uterus sheds the lining, just like, the life force, we're losing, the life force, which is why we're so drained during that time. Blood is life force. Just like all of that, what we're supposed to do from a spiritual, metaphysical perspective is we're supposed to release and get rid of and let go of and heal from the emotional traumas for that month, so that we start the next month nice and refreshed. And that's what this hut was for. And so women who followed that, who were taught that and who did that, every month they would, during their cycles, they wouldn't curse the cycle. They wouldn't say, oh my God, these damn cramps, they wouldn't do that. They would see that as a time to go in and reflect and is there anything that I need to heal right now? And cramps, the heart of the cramps, hey, why not me? I love that spelling. That's very clever. The cramps, right? The cramps are supposed to be symbolic of the amount or the level of things, or the amount of things that you're holding on to that you have not dealt with. So if you're having of course there are other physical, I'm not going to say it's all spiritual or mental, but there are other physical ailments. But I'm speaking right now from a spiritual, metaphysical side. Okay. So if you have really bad cramps, I would invite you to take a moment when you're having those cramps. Just be with yourself, right? Get you some tea. Take you some, what are they taking now? I don't have a cycle anymore, so I don't have cramps anymore. But I remember they had Pamprin, but Pamprin was like candy. I started out taking 800 milligrams for cramps, and then progressed to 1,500 milligrams. So, there was a whole lot of stuff going on. And not until I learned about, this in my late 30s did I start to gain some relief by recognizing, pulling up, and really healing from what was going on. Okay. So I would invite you every month during your cycle, if you still have a cycle, I would invite you to take some time to go in and to really think about what happened during the month. Was there maybe there was something that happened? Maybe you were slighted by somebody and you said it was okay, but it really wasn't. This isn't the time to then take the energy from your cramps and go cuss them out either. This is personal work. This is very, very personal work. And get a journal, right? Journal what happened. And if something happened in a way that, upset you, then release that, see that energy from that particular thing leaving your body, just as the uterine lining is leaving, just as the blood flow for the month is leaving. During that time, flush all that out so you can start next month new. Okay. So not doing that and not knowing about that, this is why I would love to have like a rites of passage. One before high school, and then one before, you graduate high school. I'm not going to say college because everybody doesn't go to college, but I think those are two separate times, right? You may have started your cycle in middle school, maybe not. But usually by the time you are done, you finish or you graduate high school, you will have had your cycle. And if you went through the program from 6 to 12, then you already know and you're already practicing. That will be, if you could do that, if just try it for a couple of months, journal about what's happening, and then make it a conscious effort to really, pull back. If it's the first 2 days that you have your cramps, and take those 2 days, get quiet, go inside, release, write it out, let it go. For those women that have never done that did not learn about that, and they go into menopause with still having all of that residual energy, then you have, and I'm in menopause right now, but I don't have, there are some people in menopause that you see them and they're sweating, like you can see the beads of sweat, and they're having hot flashes. I do have hot flashes. I don't have them as much as I used to. But sometimes this time, like around the age of 40, before menopause, the age of 40, that's a very evolutionary time in a woman's life. When a woman turns 40, she's like, you know what, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. You can kiss my behind. You can go to hell. She's in that mode, right? Because 40 is when you start, you start that next phase. And then when it's not necessarily 50, whenever you start menopause, you're going through another phase, and now you have to readjust again. You had to readjust, mentally and emotionally at 40, and now when you start menopause, your body is doing all these crazy things. It's almost like puberty for middle-aged women, because when you're going through puberty, your body starts all these changes and chemical reactions, and what's going on? I don't understand. Why is my daughter crazy? And next thing you know, she's asking you, to buy her some lady products, and you're like, oh, now it makes sense. Well, when you get to the menopause phase, if you haven't dealt with those pain bodies, you haven't dealt with that residual energy, then your menopause moments, or your time, however long it lasts for you, it may even last longer. You may have, more chemical imbalances when it comes to your mood swings. All of these things play together. So this is one of the reasons why, in my business, the reason why I didn't go the psychology route, but I always knew that I wanted to help people. Psychology doesn't approach the spiritual aspect of it. So for me, I believe in tapping into the spirit and explaining these things to you. You have your doctor you can go to, for the medicine and things like that. But when it comes to those things that, you need to grow through, you need to heal from, you need to deal with, so that you can, at this time in your life, learn how to just relax. That's where I want to be. I want to be able to share with you the things that you can do that are not, medicinal, the things that you can do that are spiritual, that are going to help you reconnect your spirit to your body. We oftentimes, do so much for other people as women. We do so much for other people. We give, we love, we nurture, we protect other people, and we neglect ourselves, and we think that that's a good thing. Well, I'm going to tell you that the law of balance would disagree. It is imperative that you take care of yourself first before you take care of anyone else. We all know the plane. We all know the comments about the mask and the airplane. Put your mask on first before you help someone else. Well, in life, you need to take care of yourself first. That's your mental, your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual. You need to address all of those things within yourself first before you do something for someone else. Because as you start to get older, if you've lived and devoted your entire life to your children, then when you get to this stage in your life and your children grow up or they move out of the house, and then it's just you, and now you're left with no one else to focus on unless you turn around and, adopt some more children or raise your grandchildren or something like that. But if it's just you, you're like, okay, well, what do I do with myself? What do I do with myself? And then you have all of these emotions that come over you. You don't know where it's coming from. It's just a lot. I see it often, and I see it not only, I've experienced some of it myself, but also with my, clients that are close to my age that have always given to other people and have neglected themselves. This is tough. This time in their lives is extremely tough because they have given to everybody else for so long. We have so much stuff to go in and to pull out, to extract from the months. Just imagine there are 12 months in every year. And if you're not taught about the spiritual and metaphysical aspect of your cycle, that means that however many years between the time you started and the time you find out about it, you have all of those years worth of stuff, right? So when we talk about people coming and bringing their baggage, she got a bunch of bags or she got a lot of baggage. Absolutely she does, because no one shared with her how to help her. No one gave her the tools, the spiritual tools that she could use to get rid of those things or to lessen the effect of them. Things happen to us and we people say, oh, you should just forget about that. No, you're not going to forget about it. And I wouldn't suggest you forget about it because those experiences made you who you are today. My experience in my first marriage made me who I am today. And I can now recall those experiences from the past and not have the energy attached to it. So here's a test for you. If one of your exes, if their name is brought up and it gets you all riled up again, right? Oh, they did this. Oh my God, I can't believe you said their name. You haven't released. And what you're doing is you're giving that person your power. That person has power over your life. They have control over you, because if their name comes up, you get lost. You go away and this bear comes out, right? Because you haven't dealt with that. So now you want to date somebody else and you're bringing all that negative energy. So as soon as that person says something that sounds even remotely close to what your ex said, now you're flying off the handle. You're telling this person all that stuff you wish you would have told your ex. Talking and having an opportunity to share and do and explain to our young adults. Men have their own rites of passage. I'm not an expert. I may have played a man in certain positions once or twice in my life, but that's another topic for another conversation. Okay. Leonetzi, I think I said that correct. Welcome. But I can't speak for the men's rites of passage. I'm talking about for the women because that's what I know, and I know that very well. So I would invite you, if you're still having your cycle, to view your cycle in the way that I discussed tonight. Think about it. Get you a book. Be kind to yourself during that time. If you need to take time away, take time away. And I don't know how I got on periods. We were talking about children. Well, I guess it's the same. We're still sharing. I'm still sharing with you about conversations that we need to have, right, with our kids. And as you're going through, and if you happen to be in the menopause phase, well, they actually say that menopause is the day, the moment that you stop having a cycle, and then everything after that is post-menopause. So if you are anywhere between pre-menopause, menopause, or post-menopause, and you haven't looked at your cycles in that way, I'm going to ask you or invite you to take some time to go within. And, you know, as Black people, African American people, we were taught that you keep your business to yourself, right? So all the stuff that happened to us in our past that we could have benefited from by talking to someone about it, and we were told and shunned that Black people don't go to therapists and things like that, we still have all of that built up inside. So if there is anything that you think you may still be dealing with, I say sit down with yourself. Try to work through it, try to grow through it on your own. And when you can't, do not hesitate reaching out to someone, because the shame or the stigma of going to see a coach or a therapist that you are afraid of dealing with now, you're going to regret not having done it later, when all of that stuff starts to come up, all of that stuff, because it has to come up. It has to come up and it has to come out, and it's going to do it at the most inopportune time. So my invitation to you is to find a way to deal with it. Okay. Find a way to deal with it. And if you are looking for ways to heal from past relationships, just inbox me. Hey, Cherise. Inbox me. I don't have the link in front of me, and there's so many bit.ly links. I don't want to give you the wrong one. But I do have a course that you can do. It's a self-study course. It's the same thing. Basically, it is providing you with the questions and the scenarios so that you can begin to identify where these things are and how it's affecting your life, and you can bring them up and heal from them. 5 different ways to do that. 5 different ways to do that. Sorry, it's my mom calling. 5 different ways to do that. It's called the 5 ways to spiritually and emotionally disconnect from your ex. If you're looking for ways to date from a healthy perspective, if you are that person that has been putting everybody else before you, if you've been getting into relationships and then the relationships are ending, if you don't know what it is you want, or if you feel like you've been dating from the wounded child perspective, I would invite you to pick up a copy. You can get it on Amazon, or if you get it on Amazon and you have Amazon Prime, you can get it in 2 days, or you can purchase it directly from me to get an autographed copy, and you will receive it, within 5 to 7 business days. But it's the 5 phases of dating, the grown-ass woman's guide to attracting and maintaining authentic relationships. And then if you've already identified that there are some things that you want to work on, and that you would prefer to work with someone to shorten the amount of time that it's going to take you to actually grow through that, feel free to go to, I do have this, I think I put it in the description. Let's see. Yeah, so there's a link there. There's a link there for the autographed copy of the book, and then there's also the link there for the grown-ass woman coaching packages or experiences. So there's a 60-minute, a 90-minute, and then a 6-week and a 12-week. My suggestion is that, if you're not sure if you want to take a deep dive, or if you really need to take a deep dive, my suggestion is that you would sign up for either the the 60-minute or the 90-minute first, so that you can see, what working with me would be like. And then at that time, if you wanted to then move into a coaching program, then you would get credit for the portion that you had already paid towards your package. But yeah, so I'm going to close with this. The conversation begins with you, whether you're talking to your grandkids, your children, children that, are not yours biologically, but you do have influence. Just have those conversations and make them very, you don't have to say, okay, on Friday at 2:00, we're going to talk about this. Gradually and very casually bring up conversations. I think for me, it's always been very good to pick a particular movie that's going to cover a specific topic, right? I used to do this with my husband's daughter, our daughter, before she went to college. I would sit and I knew what a certain movie would be about, or we would sit and watch Love and Hip Hop. I would watch Love and Hip Hop. Well, I'm not gonna lie. We would watch Love and Hip Hop, and then I would use that as a great opportunity to talk about what was happening and whether or not that was, a healthy thing to do. Is that how women should behave? Those sorts of things. So the conversation was more natural than it was forced. And then it got to the point where, she would come and she would say, hey, you want to watch, I would be here in the office. She's like, you want to watch Love and Hip Hop? I'm about to watch Love and Hip Hop. And I saw that as an opportunity once again to have a very real conversation. And so I'd stop whatever I was doing in here and I would go in there with her. So the conversation begins with you. And, you can start the conversation at whatever age you feel appropriate, but just make sure that your conversation and the topics and the way that you express them are age appropriate. Doesn't mean you can't talk about it. And she would ask me questions. She would want me to give her just like blanket information. And I said, you know what, I would be more than happy to answer any question that you have. And she's like, just tell me something. I was like, nope, any question that you have. So once you get to the point where you know enough to ask the question, then I will answer that question. And she was like, oh, she get frustrated, but she understood, where I was coming from. And so that just left it open for her. And we're able to talk about a lot of things that most are not able to talk about. So not so much with, each child can be different. So I have one, son that will talk to me about every single thing on the planet. Doesn't matter. I'm his mom. And then I have the other one that's very, Mom, stop talking about that, right? I don't want to talk about that. I feel uncomfortable. So each child is different, but you can have a conversation, begin the conversation. It starts with you. And I think it's very important. This Red Table Talk, I'm going to be glued to Facebook every Monday night because I like the concept. It's open, it's honest dialogue. And I think that Willow is going to, the lessons that Jada and her mom learned about the way that they connected with each other and those challenges and in the way that they healed their relationship. Willow can only benefit from that. And Willow, should she decide to be a mom, not sure that she wants to be, but should she decide to be a mom, she will be a lot better equipped to handle motherhood versus surprise, I'm pregnant, or, having a baby, having a baby in order to feel like somebody actually loves you. Young girls do that too. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, and I don't know why I think I'm not claiming it. I am not catching. I am 100% whole, healthy, and happy. Let me just put that out there. I don't even want to say the word, but my throat is starting to feel a little funny. Okay. So thank you so much for listening. I will see you next Tuesday with another topic, and I will do my best not to talk about the Monday night session. I will come up with my own topics, but I just thought that this one was very, very good, and it sparked a conversation in me that I wanted to have with you. So thank you so much for being here with me and for allowing me to have this conversation with you. Okay, so don't forget, the links are in the link for the coaching link. Thank you for the heart so much. The link for the book is there, the autographed copy. You can find and here's the book if you can't see it, The 5 Phases of Dating. So you can find this book on Amazon, or you can find this book on Amazon in Kindle and in paperback, or you can find, you can get the autographed copy at the link here, bit.ly 5POD autographed copy. And that's POD for 5 phases of dating. But the link is right here. So I look forward to seeing you here next Tuesday. And I'm going to go and take an Alka-Seltzer Plus and go take my butt to bed. Okay. All right, guys. I love you. Thank you so much for being here and for allowing me to do what I love to do, which is talk about dating and relationships. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Hey, Steven. Hey, Carol. I'm sorry I'm about to jump off. You guys, please be sure to catch the replay. All right. Bye.